All right, next up we have Janice from Blue Moon Industries.
All right. Hi.
Hello.
I am going to whip through some slides and we'll get right to the demo.
Sounds like a plan.
All right.
All right, looks good.
Well, thanks. Hi, everybody. This is Janice. I'm from Blue Moon. And today we're going to be taking a look at our container management product for BC. A little bit about us. We've been around for a while and we have been developing primarily for Dynamics GP. Now we're moving into the Dynamics BC and finance space as well. So bringing a lot of our popular products over into those additional ERPs. So today I want to give you a quick look at our container management product. We find that there's a lot of customers out there who are bringing in their items from overseas, and they're bringing them in order to make that efficient through containers that are put in onto shipments that are brought in over the water. And what happens is there's a lot of tracking that goes along with that. There's also a lot of management of different purchase orders, sometimes different vendors who are all using one consolidator, and trying to keep track of everything from point A to point B can be a big problem. So mainly there's just no visibility. What is actually on the container? When is it coming in? And with everyone trying to keep their inventory as lean as possible, customer service also is getting involved because they need to know when those items are coming in because they want to sell them as quickly as possible. And so, what we've done with our container product is we've made this a one stop shop. So, the user can set up the purchase orders to their various vendors, set up the different containers and shipments, and then track that as one unit all the way through the process, even through the receiving process, and assigning item charges slash landed costs to those shipments as well. It will also let you track the whole process when your ownership of the items happens as soon as they're on the water. So as soon as they're on this beautiful ship, then that you own them, then they need to be in some kind of inventory. But if you know customer service, they're going to try to, sell it and ship it that day. So understanding that it's in on the water or an in transit type location is also important so that there isn't the perception that it's sitting out there in the warehouse waiting to be shipped out to a customer. So that's was the premise of us coming up with the container management product. And it doesn't have to be any customer or user that's very, huge or anything like that. Just someone that brings in their products this way. We've also talked recently to customers who may not be going overseas to make these purchases, but they're trying to reduce their transportation costs by using rail cars or being part of a bigger shipment of a truck from point A to point B. So this does not have to be something that is occurring in an international situation. It could also be something domestic where they are, again, leveraging affordable delivery methods so that they can move the products less expensively and keep those costs down. So now we're going to take a look at the product, and I'm just going to switch over to my other screen here, and we'll take a look. All right. So are you seeing my any screen of mine? It says I'm sharing, but it's hard
You
to.
are sharing Business Central.
Okay, great. Excellent, excellent. All right. So in Business Central, our product is fully integrated. So all of the tools, like my favorite tool, which is the search, gives you the ability to go in and take a look at any of the windows very easily. So you'll see container related windows right here from your main window, and that will give you the access you need to get to all of our related windows. So I'm just going to make this full screen here. I'm not going to train you on the product today, but I did want to show you that we do give you quite a few flexible options here in the software. So for example, there's a number of date fields that are typically critical for tracking so that you can understand, when the product was leaving the point of departure. How long is it going to be until it's supposed to be at the port? Once it gets to the port, how long is it before we can actually put it on a truck and bring it to us? And all of those things combined um, are part of what makes the product, when you're getting it from point A to point B, super efficient. So knowing these dates is something that will then update Business Central so that everyone along the sort of the food chain of this, from the purchasing people to the customer service person waiting for the item, will have the latest and greatest dates. So you'll see that you have the ability to manipulate and change the dates as far as the labels and things like that. But in addition, we give you the ability to update the actual promise date on that line item on the various POs so that anyone that's looking at that particular item can see the latest date and as to when that will be received. We also give you a number of user definable fields because we find that many customers are using documents from the freight forwarder, and there's a lot of key elements on there, such as different numbers and BOL numbers and all of those different tracking elements so that they can identify, again, all of the aspects to the container and report on it as well. You also have the ability to import this information. So if the freight forwarder is giving you this in a portal, you can download updates and it will update those date fields and update those user-defined fields as well. So let's take a look. I'm just going to go into the shipments window. And if you think about that ship that we just saw, a shipment could be, let's say, multiple containers. Many customers, they have one container on that big ship. Some customers might have 10 containers on that ship, and they need to be managed as a group. So we start the process defining the shipment, and then we can identify all of the containers that are within that shipment. So you can see here that there's a lot of field data, and this is also things that we've been told must be on there in certain situations. So you can identify all of this information, but you'll see here that we don't mark it all as required because many of these items are things that you find out later in the process. So we don't want to have you put, let's say, wrong data in there or fake data in there just to save the field. Now, the date fields are a little bit of a different story. We could identify those as being required because in some cases you consider those required in order to save that particular shipment. But along the way, I can select things like the freight forwarder and track that information. I can also track the agent who's handling everything that's moving things from point A to point B. And I can also select the vessel. And you might say, oh, that's kind of neat, but I don't know why I would really need this. But what happens with the vessel, when you look at the details behind the vessel, is you can see the point of registry, you can see where it's coming from, and then you can also see here where it's coming to. So it would fill in that from and to port for you if you wanted it to. What's important here is that, as you might recall, there's been a number of weather events in these shipping lane areas. And there's also been other issues that have come up with the traffic that happens with these containers. So knowing where you're coming from and to might be a very valuable item to know if there's a monsoon in that area or if they are closing, some traffic lanes that are going to now prevent your traffic, your items from coming in on time because they're stuck in some kind of on the water traffic jam. So in addition, here you can have all of your dates. We're shipping it out hopefully by Friday. And then eventually I can fill in that actual date. Again, giving me that ability to track not only what's really happening, but how well is this vendor that we're using as the freight forwarder performing? Yes, Friday, but did it really go on Friday? Which means we'll probably get it by the middle of November. And then once it comes in, is that original ETA date to us? It's usually another 5 days. So we should have our original ETA date now somewhere around the 22nd. And then it'll tell me, hey, you want to put that as the current promise date for all the lines I'm about to put onto this container? Yes, I'd like to do that. Then you'll see that this becomes disabled. And the more ETA dates I get, the more revisions. Oops, not Friday, the following Monday. Oops, not Monday, it's Wednesday. As you update those dates and get that additional information, now the system is going to give us additional details. So if I say, well, it's actually looking like it's going to be now the 29th, it's going to say, oh, would you like me to update the date? And then I would say yes. And then that way, even though you may be frustrated with these changes in dates, the users on the other side of this, with the customer service area or maybe manufacturing waiting for a component, they'll have all the information they need by you updating this. So let's take a quick peek at the containers that are part of this shipment. So from here, now, if you think about the shipment that could be one or multiple containers, we'll give each container, or the system, excuse me, the freight forwarder will give us container numbers for all of our colored boxes on that ship. And then from here, I can add all of the details. Now, details just means POs and line items. Now, for some of our customers, this could be 50 different purchase orders from 49 different vendors with all different items on it. In other customers we work with, it's one PO, one item fills the entire container. So based on how your system needs to be configured, then you might see multiple POs on here, you might see multiple line items on here. All of that may be true. Now, what's happening here is that we give you the ability at the item level, right within Business Central, to put in the weight and the space, in other words, that this item is going to take up in the container. And we're going to be calculating that as you start to fill the container. So as you add more items to the container, it's going to get heavier, and it's also going to get more full, because a lot of times the landed costs or the item charges need to be apportioned by the weight and sometimes by the space. We had a customer that sold very large pieces of very light furniture. So they needed to apportion the landed cost by how much space it was taking, because something could be very big but very light, but they couldn't put anything else in the container because that very light sectional took almost the whole thing. So knowing how you need to calculate and apportion your landed costs can also be contributing to the use of these fields. We also find that in some industries, it's important to know this because, you're here and you may be, somewhere domestically, and then they're over in China or Vietnam or Hong Kong or somewhere else, and they're telling you how much the container weighs, and you could compare that against your weights that you have for those items and make sure that it's in line, because the cost of freight and moving freight these days is so expensive that every pound counts. So knowing that you've got a consistent weight going on and calculations are being done as you are expecting them could be an important part of your cost. So once all of the container detail is added into this window, you can choose close. And then what will happen here is you'll see that there's another section here for the item charges / landed costs. And for each one of these, you can put in the different types. You might have a freight charge, you might have insurance, you might have a miscellaneous charge in case something goes sideways. There may be all kinds of things that you have as landed costs here that are related to this shipment. And then from here, I can go into the landed costs and I can assign them or apportion them. And when I come in here, I can suggest an assignment that's either split it up evenly between all the items. I can go by their dollar amount, maybe because the more expensive items get assigned more, or again, as we were saying, by that weight or volume. And then just by choosing that, it's going to take those landed costs. It's going to take whatever that item is that I choose, and then it's going to calculate and apportion that 250 to those different items. And then it's going to also assign the item charges as needed. So now when I come back to the item and I look at the costs, now when I post this, it's going to not only have the cost of the items from the purchase order, it's going to add in that cost that we have at the line level for that particular freight charge or other landed cost. Now, the last item I just would like to bring up here is that FOB processing means that once you post that FOB receipt, it will actually post the receipt into Business Central, into the location that you've identified as the FOB or the in-transit location. And then once the items are actually received, you can confirm the quantities received. And then when you post it from this window, it will transfer the items out of the in-transit location and into the location that was identified on the original purchase order. So I'm just going to go back to my slideshow here for a moment. And let's see. And then just to give you an idea, in addition to our container management product, we also have a chargeback processing product, electronic payment processing to add electronic payments integrated in with Business Central for both sales orders as well as accounts receivable capability within Business Central, and also a portal that would allow you to electronically deliver your invoices to your customers and give them a self-service way to go out to pay their invoices, apply credit memos against their invoices, see an aging of their own outstanding invoices, and also to be able to select different gateways that you might already be using to process those payments through that portal. We also have taken our project tracking module that we have on the Dynamics GP side into Business Central as well to easily manage project costs through payables and also provide reporting around processing those project costs. So if you have any additional questions, please feel free to contact us, and I will stop sharing